Stewards Room, episode 4. And of course, joined alongside me in the commentary box for this episode is Colin, but we have a special guest, another steward. Mark's joining us. Mark, welcome to Inside the Stewards Room. How many years have you been doing stewarding now for One Hub?
Hello everyone. It's been nearly 8 years now, 7 or 8.
That'd be what, 16, 15 seasons?
Yeah, I joined in season 12, I think, which was 2018.
2018. So lots of experience in the commentary box. And Cole, how are you doing tonight?
Yes, very good, Nick. Very good. How is everyone?
Yes, can't complain. Excited for Monza. Obviously, it's always exciting when we've got the real F1 race happening on the Sunday, and we're also at that track in One Hub, so it helps build the excitement. But Colin, another week, surprisingly, where there was hardly any incidents.
Yeah, I mean, I think there was... Mark, you'll have to correct me. I think there was only 3 I think we looked at in the end.
Yes.
The standard of driving has been really high. Been a couple of early ready ups, which we'll go into remind everyone a bit later on. But yeah, the standard of driving is great. You know, very few reports, which is good.
Yeah, Mark, does it surprise you that such a narrow track with grass either side that we did see as little incidents reported this week? Obviously, Canada as well is normally a high incident-filled track, but even that was quiet for them.
Yeah, I was expecting a bit more incidents, but everyone kept it clean, so that makes me happy.
Yes, it makes the league look good, and all the drivers enjoy it as well. Well, without further ado, we are going to jump into some incidents, and I think Jess is going to possibly pull it up on stream for us, which is the Hockey Night incident, where he came into the pits and was awarded 10-second penalty by the game for speeding in the pit lane. And the footage that he supplied doesn't show the MDF or the pit lane speed graphic. And Cole, therefore, the stewards weren't able to look into it any further.
No, so there wasn't enough information. What we really needed was the MFD, but also the pit lane graphic, pit lane speed graphic. That would have been able to give us more information on whether the penalty was incorrectly or correctly applied by the game. But unfortunately, with that footage, we just couldn't come to an accurate decision. So we just decided to go no further action.
And Mark, we've had it before where a driver has crossed the pit lane speed line at exactly 50 miles per hour, but the game still awarded a 10-second penalty. And I think I don't know if we've seen it on this game, but on previous games we've put it down to that although it shows 50 miles an hour, the car could actually be traveling at 50.2 miles per hour, which is what the game's registered.
Yes, exactly. I've had this exact same incident a few seasons ago in Imola. And yeah, it was very marginal, and I think also the graphics were saying different values, like the pit entry graphic, the MFD, and the steering wheel were maybe like different by 1 or 2 kilometers per hour. So it must be something with the rounding of the numbers. So I must have been going like, I don't know, 60.5 or something like that, which is a fair penalty, of course.
It's interesting though, because Calling Unarmed got one, I think, in the P1 tier as well. Mark, why do you think it is that it's such little time to gain from us drivers, and such a huge penalty if we mess it up? But drivers continue to try and push the limits in terms of the pit lane entry. Do you think that's something that'll ever change, or do you think that's just how we're born?
Well, drivers want to gain every bit of time they can, so I think it's understandable, but the 10-second penalty is way too harsh in my opinion, because in real life I think it's only 5 seconds if you go over the pit limit line too fast. So, and
Yeah,
I
Cole,
think
I think
Callum also got it under safety car conditions. So I think that was a bit unnecessary from him.
yeah, obviously
But it
less
takes
less time to lose if you're stopping behind the safety car.
Yeah, the thing is, if you nail the pit entry, you are going to gain so much time. You could gain up to a second on the previous guy if he's taking it easy into the pit lane. So it is beneficial, but obviously you've got that risk then of getting 10 seconds. So it's you got to weigh it up, haven't you?
Yeah, definitely. If you were to decide what the penalty would be, Cole, what would you say? 5 seconds rather than 10?
10 for everyone else, 5 for me. Yeah, I would do 5 if it's what the game does. But of course, it's what real Formula One does. But of course, if you go flat out in the pit lane, then that should be more than 5 because you're going to gain probably a couple of seconds. So I can understand why the game automatically does 10 seconds, to be fair.
All right, well, let's move on to the next incident that we're going to look at, which was actually between myself and J. Cole. And it actually caused quite a bit of discussion within our incident channel where the stewards and Mark. Ultimately, it came down to some of the wording within our rules in terms of what a drivable surface is, and obviously these chunky sausage curbs were at the center of that attention.
Yeah, so you were forced onto the sausage curb on the inside of, I can't remember which turn it is, but we have got the video up now. So here we believe that J. Cole left you just enough space to make the corner, basically. But I think it's different between platforms on how you can take the curbs, especially the sausage curbs, because it might be a bit easier for PC players. So that's why I believe that there was enough space.
Yeah, and Cole, obviously being my teammate, you don't tend to comment on my incidents or your dad's incidents for that matter. But it was a borderline one, wasn't it? Where it was heavily discussed, and the stewards weren't 100% confident in what we were gonna. It could have gone either way in a sense.
Yeah, exactly that. It was quite a difficult incident to look at, and the stewards had to really look closely at the wording of the rules on SimGrid to make sure that we were following the rules that we've laid out. This is a lot of sports, not just esports, but Formula One, rugby, football. They sometimes get so involved in the incident they forget to look at their own flipping rules. So this is where our rules were very helpful to us, and the only little bit, really, like you said at the start, Nick, was what are we considering a drivable surface?
So SimGrid, so the rule on SimGrid, which is under the racing rules, point 2, says the drivable surface is defined as the tarmac within the white lines, the curb or potential tarmac runoff area outside the white line. Grass, gravel, aggressive sausage curbs are not considered a drivable surface. So what the stewards were debating was that sausage curb a drivable surface? And in this incident, they felt that you could use the sausage curb without it unsettling the car too much. So had it been a different track with a more aggressive sausage curb, which would unsettle the car, the stewards kind of led to believe that the incident would have gone the other way, and it would have been classed that J. Cole didn't give enough room. But yeah, a heavily discussed incident, and it's always really tricky, Cole, when one of us are involved in the incident, or particularly myself. because when you write I wrote all the rules on SimGrid, so I know what they were intended for. But obviously, as stewards, you guys are always going to interpret them how you read them, as naturally drivers do as well.
Yeah, exactly that. And of course, there is an element of interpretation with any rules and regulations, no matter how well worded and how well written they are. There's always an element of kind of a different interpretation. It's like my full-time job is basically doing that, trying to understand and interpret aerospace regulations. And it is tricky the way, you've got to, and you will have your own personal view on what that rule means, and a different person will have a slightly different view. It's just unfortunately, the nature of rules and regulations. But having seen that again, I'm now even more convinced that it was a racing incident, and I think we did come to the right decision.
Alrighty, well, let's move on to the third incident we're going to look at, which was between the two McLarens in P1 and Pelzy. So Just is going to bring it up on stream for us. So J. Cole, Callum Arnaud, and Pelzy. This was after the safety car restart. And, I think in one of the rules in SimGrid, it says that usually if there's an incident involving 3 cars, it says more than 3 cars into one corner usually doesn't go. The stewards will do their best to apportion blame, but in most cases, a racing incident will be the result. Now, on this incident, obviously, it had big consequences for J. Cole, but the stewards decided to take no further action. Mark, just talk us through how you guys came to this decision.
Yeah, so we can see the Red Bull rejoining in front of Pelzy, which, of course, there was a bit of contact between them, which unsettled Pelzy's car, and I think Pelzy was a bit too happy on the throttle, a bit too early, and had a bit of a snap which he caught, but he got squeezed between the 2 McLarens as they were either side of him, so I think it's a really unfortunate accident, but we couldn't apportion blame to either driver.
Yeah, so Cole, both McLarens going for kind of a move on the recovering Pelzy there. One trying to follow you around the outside, which was J. Cole, and then Callum on the inside. Is this some of perhaps a disadvantage of having a narrow track, or do you think this is just kind of a safety car restart? Not many laps left to go in the race, and the drivers trying to maximize the positions they can gain whilst the cars are so close.
Yeah, to be honest, yes, the narrow nature of the track didn't help the situation. But when you've got 4 laps left after a safety car restart, it usually is a bit manic anyway. And you've got different drivers on different sets of tyres, different grip levels. That's one of the reasons why Coyley up the front there was struggling, because he was on his old mediums. So those type of incidents are quite common for us after safety car restarts towards the end. But like Mark said, it was just unfortunate. No one was predominantly at fault. Like Mark said, Pelzy had a bit of oversteer. He corrected it. He didn't make any sudden movements, and just collected the 2 McLarens. So it was just unfortunate for the 2 Macca boys, that's all.
Yeah, some would say karma for J. Cole. I know he's listening. So, 2 incidents in one race. All right. Also, Mark, we just want to mention the ready up rule because it caused quite a bit of frustration from some of the P3 drivers where they didn't get a chance to load their strategy or their fuel or their setup. So for those watching, just quickly run us through how important it is and why we have this ready up rule.
Yeah, so we would like to give drivers enough time to make sure they load their setups, set their correct fuel for the race and their correct strategies. So we ask drivers to not ready up on the grid when they are setting their strategies and all. So and just wait for the tier coordinator to send a message in Discord that you can ready up, and just wait. The best thing I would say is to just let the countdown run out and not ready up, because you will get a penalty if someone else readies up, but it's not the tier coordinator as well.
Yeah, so just sit on the grid, relax, have that last drink, make sure your strategy, your fuel, everything's good to go. And yeah, it won't be long till two lights out. Yeah, so 2 to 3 minutes I think the tier coordinators give, which obviously I think particularly in Netherlands, because I think both strategies started you on the hard tire automatically, so see, not many people wanted to do that, so changing the strategy took a little bit longer than say other tracks would. All right, so we're going to move over to some good examples of overtakes, defending, which Jess is going to bring up on stream. And I think we're going to start with P3 with a Jack Craig overtake. So, Jack, if you're watching, we're going to talk through this overtake that you did in the P3 tier. And Jack's had a good return to one hub this season. So we can see Colin in the Aston Martin down the inside there of the banked corner.
Yeah, I loved this maneuver. I remember watching it live and commentating on it live. It's one of the bravest maneuvers I've seen, because it could have easily ended in tears like the Leclerc-Antonelli incident. But he gave enough room on the exit, actually pulled quite tight on the inside. But really, really great move. And obviously the other, his teammate, Guest, saw him come in and allowed him to have that car's width then. But very brave, but yeah, great maneuver. One of my favourites for many seasons, to be honest.
And here's the onboard. So, Mark, usually it's the outside you want to be on because you get the better traction through that banked corner. You spoke a lot of, in the P1 race, how sometimes the drivers in front had a lot better traction than you. But naturally, the inside line isn't the best way to go through that banked corner.
Yeah, in real life, they really don't use that inside because I think the cars bottom out. But actually, on the game, I think it's the fastest way to just take that corner on the inside as tight as you can, but not touching the curb, obviously, because that would unsettle your car. But yeah, some guys on the exit in P1 were just monstrous.
Alrighty, and I think Jesse's going to bring up a Jacob and Matthias battle. So Matthias, Colin, we were talking about this, having a really good start to this season.
Oh yeah, he's. I think he's had a 6th and 2 seconds. A brilliant start. His best start to a season I've seen for a very, very long time, to be honest. I think if he could continue his performances, he could find himself with a trophy at the end of the year.
So, the incident that we just saw into turn 1 there, the reason we brought it up on stream was because Matthias went down the inside, made a little bit of contact with Jamie for overshooting. But Mark, you'll see, I don't know if Jess can bring it, rewind it back for us, but you'll see that Matthias lifts off and lets Jamie back through. Obviously it didn't go to the stewards, but how do the stewards view that if a driver does that?
Yes, if an incident like this happens, then usually we are a bit more lenient if the driver lets the other guy past and gives up the advantage that they gained. Obviously here Jamie lost another position, so it would most likely have been a smaller penalty. But if it was just Jamie and Matthias let Jamie back pass, then it probably wouldn't have been a penalty anyway.
Yeah, so it's really important, Cole, that we encourage fair racing, and if the drivers can sort it out amongst themselves on track, you know, if there's been a pass which is unfair, then, you know, that's important to do.
Yeah, definitely. We've seen it a few times in the past, and you know, what you usually find is if the driver makes a mistake and goes, "Oh, I'm going to have to let him go," yeah, and he lets him go, the other driver won't even bother reporting it anyway. Because they've got, oh, he's let me go, that's fine, thank you very much. And I'd just let drivers, be more aware. And if you think, do you know what, I'm not entirely convinced that maneuver was fair, let the guy go, and it could help you in the long run, because if there's going to be a late safety car and you suddenly get 5 seconds, you could drop quite a few positions.
You definitely can. All right, I think Jess is gonna now bring up from the P2 tier, which is a Papa and Morgan battle. Now we saw Morgan, leading the race. I think it was on the last lap, but then had a moment which cost him potentially the win. So always difficult to swallow that. But Cole in the chat afterwards seemed in good spirits still, which is always nice to see.
Yeah, he was obviously very disappointed and felt as though he threw a race win away. But in all fairness to Morgan, I think Papa had the move done anyway on Morgan when he made his mistake. You can see him. You see Papa here now on the outside. Morgan leaves a perfect amount of room, not too much, but the perfect amount of a car's width. And that's where he just puts his foot down a little bit too eagerly on the throttle, and unfortunately disappears into the barrier. And I think he finished, was it 3rd or 4th at the end? I can't remember. Mikey in the chat would be able to tell me. But yeah, it's just one of those things. He's inexperienced. He'll learn from it.
Yeah, and Mark, we mentioned in last week's third episode that the outside corner the outside of turn 1, you get that better traction, but it's so difficult to go through side by side through this section here, and lap 36 out of 36, worn tires. Morgan just had that moment and unfortunately ended up on the side barrier.
Yeah, it is very tricky to go side by side after turn 1, because the track is just so narrow and there is a bit of dirt on the off the racing line, so it's very tricky.
Alrighty, and staying with P2, we're going to go over to another battle of Mikey and Welsh Benjamin, and I know Mikey's in the chat, so he's going to get some air time from us. So we'll just wait, because I don't think I've seen this one actually myself, so let's get Jess to bring it up on stream for us, and then we'll talk through it. So we like to just show, good incidents, because we don't just want to highlight when drivers mess up and get penalized. We want to, I think it's important to highlight when they do something right. So hopefully Jess is going to bring it up for us.
Yeah, it's a good thing, because it also helps our inexperienced drivers, and even some of the experienced drivers, to learn, certain overtaking techniques, where you can overtake, where you can't. So it's quite helpful. It's equally as helpful showing good examples as it is bad.
Alrighty, if you can't find it, Jess, let's move. We can move on to the P1 tier, because I know we got a good side-by-side action of some onboards through there. So yeah, we'll move. Sorry, Mikey. We'll move on to P1 because we don't want to keep you all waiting. And Cole, we were just talking about, Mark and I were just talking about how difficult it is to go through side by side. But you and I both had some good battles with Casper in the P1 race. Always, Casper's someone who races very hard. But on this example that we're going to show you, it was clean, fair, side by side.
Yeah, so you could see now I've had the DRS, I'm in the inside of Casper, and then here comes Nick as well. So Paul Casper lost 2 places in the space of a couple of meters there. But you can see Nick leaves enough room on the outside for Casper, and still again through the bank corner, and then finally Nick gets the move completed. But you could see how far that they were alongside all that. So many corners, basically 3 corners.
Yeah, so
Great
Mark,
action.
you'll see here Casper leaves me just enough space, so returns the favour of the opposite way round. And ultimately, it was the outside for the second time in a row that got the better traction.
Yeah, this was just a beautiful battle. I loved watching this.
Yeah, it's such a nice series of corners, and Mark, it requires both drivers to want to be able to give that room. You know, it's so easy for a driver if they want to. You can see actually J. Cole taps the rear of me slightly there, so I know more dirty driving from the McLaren driver. But I'm joking. But it requires 2 drivers to make these sorts of battles happen, Mark.
Yeah, and it just feels so good when you can battle with someone for multiple corners, just side by side, and giving just enough room for each other. And of course, it's better when you are the overtaking driver and you manage to pull it off.
Yeah.
Of course,
Sorry, Nick. I think I agree with Jake here. I think that little nudge actually helped you out a little bit with Casper there.
Cole, we often say that, you know, sometimes having good results are great, but sometimes when you have these battles, they're so rewarding in themselves.
Oh, they really are, and you know, it's good fun to watch them back as well. You know, I don't mean like a couple of days later. I mean like weeks later. You know, but these sort of battles are absolutely brilliant. That's my favourite one because you could see Nick going down the inside of me there. So we're in a party chat, and he actually said, "Cole, I've got to go for it because if I don't overtake you, Casper's going to have the pair of us." So it was. I had pre-warning of it, so expected him to come down the inside so I could cover off Casper. So I know I'm a bit biased, but I think that was great teamwork by us there, Nick.
Yes, definitely was, mate. All right, well, a completely different track this week in terms of Monza. Obviously, lots of straights, a few chicanes. Mark, what's the secret to success around here? Is it being able to keep the penalties down? Is it just being able to be consistent through those chicanes?
Yeah, getting the corners right is gonna be crucial because most of the track is just flat out, so not much time to gain or lose there, but cutting the corners precisely is gonna be the key here, I think.
And
And of course,
also,
keeping the penalties low.
well, we were practicing last night, weren't we? And you went wide at Ascari, and the game ended up giving you 4 warnings.
Yes, exactly. I think I got 4 warnings in the middle of Ascari and also 2 at the entry. I just got it a bit too much, but drivers should be watching out for that. And if this happens, then they should save the race director footage so we can look at it and potentially remove them.
Colin, we've spoken about how on F125 dirty air is a major factor. We're expecting the cars to be following extremely closely here in Monza on Sunday. What's your advice to drivers, you know, when they are running that close to the gearbox of the car in front?
Yeah, just be aware that that driver is going to brake before that you need to. So just be wary of that. Be conscious of it. Try and predict where that guy's going to brake ahead of you. And if you do brake a little bit earlier, you might get a better run on the exit anyway, and have a better chance of having to move the following corner. But my big advice for everyone for Sunday is lap 1, turn 1, be careful. You could easily destroy your race before it even has begun. So I've said it before, but I will repeat it, as the great Murray Walker used to say, you can't win the race on the first corner, but you sure can lose it. So just try and play the percentages into turn 1. Yes, we all know it's a great opportunity on lap 1 to gain a few places, but just be conscious that, you know, you could destroy your race or someone else's.
And Mark, finally, before we head off, a new rule for this season was the banning of DRS chicken. I think it was actually this track that made the stewards decide that they wanted to ban it moving forwards. But the DRS detection point has moved from last year's game. It's actually after Parabolica now.
Yes, it used to be just in the braking zone of Parabolica, but now it moved, I think, just at the pit entry, or maybe a bit before that. So it would be even more dangerous if people started playing DRS chicken.
Yeah, obviously they're going to be full throttle at that point. And just quickly, Cole, we spoke about it earlier. Coming into the pits, it's one of those that you're coming in at huge speeds. So the pit lane loss is quite substantial here. Whilst the cars are obviously going full speed down the straight, you're coming slowly in the pit lane. Just any advice to drivers for heading towards that right hand side of the track? Obviously, if you are coming into the pits, the stewards I'm sure would advise to keep the line tight in Parabolica.
Yeah, exactly that, and that also gives some warning for the other drivers as well that you're going to come in the pit lane. But just be wary, when you're practicing coming in the pit lane. Let's say, for example, you practice it during the qualifying. You're not going to be able to brake there during the race because your tyres are going to be significantly more worn. So I think that's what catches a few drivers out. I think they pick their braking point of where they're going to brake during the qualifying, and of course you got pretty fresh tyres, so that braking zone is dramatically increased if you're coming in on very worn mediums or very worn hards. So just bear that in mind when you enter the pit lane. Another thing I want to add as well, Nick, is I think it was last season or the season before, we had drivers trying to overtake other cars coming into the pit lane in Monza. Now, you can do that, but you've got to make sure you do it carefully and safely. Because if you're the overtaking driver and there's an incident, 99% of the time it's going to be on you to make that a safe maneuver. So if you are going to try it, just make sure that you're doing it as carefully as you can. Because it's very easy to get a DNF for either yourself or the other driver.
Yeah, that's a good point, Cole. I remember that incident coming into the pit lane. I think the driver got penalised because we felt that he wasn't in control of the manoeuvre or his car, and could have substantially, caused a further incident than what actually happened. So yeah, good memory for bringing that up. And just one quick final thing, Mark. Tyres are going to be really crucial here because the wear is going to be high. The softs are pretty much no good, and obviously tyre temps as well are going to be tricky. So any advice to drivers who are creeping up towards the 60s and 70s in terms of wear percentage?
I think decreasing the differential a bit for the race could help drivers with the tire wear, and also a bit higher pressures to keep the temperatures lower.
There you go. So not only some stewarding incident advice, racing advice, you've got some setup advice. All right, Mark, Colin, thank you very much for joining me in the episode 4 of Inside the Stewards Room. I've really enjoyed this new feature of One Hub so far this season. Hope everyone else has too. Just want to quickly thank our sponsors, SimGrid, who we run our leagues through, Vespertine, who you can purchase our merchandise and win our merchandise in the Drivers and Constructors Championships each season. Next Level Racing, who have been providing us lots of sim racing prizes. Sim Racing Setup, where you can get discount using our code on their website, their F Pro setups. And of course, you can also win vouchers if you end up Driver of the Day each week. Pure Sim Gear, of course, where you can get your sim racing gloves and sim racing socks. Jess, thank you for your help in the background, giving us everything that we need to see on stream. Cole, Mark, been a pleasure. Thank you very much, everyone, for watching, and we will see you on Sunday.
Yeah, cheers all. See you Sunday.
See you.